We just got another email in, Anonymous.
Okay.
Said, Dear G-Man, can you ask Anonymous what an electropsychometer is and how it works? Apparently the Scientologists use it to measure brain waves. She said, I'd like to get some intel on it. And it's signed by John Fulmer from Bar Harbor, Maine.
Okay, John Fulmer here coming at you. Okay, here's the deal. The electropsychometer, or the Hubbard electropsychometer, is a crude lie detector. It just measures galvanic response. And here's the theory. You get hooked up to the e-meter, and you've got two cans you're holding in your hands, and they ask you very pointed questions, like, have you ever committed incest and stuff like that. Well, the theory is you register an emotional response that reads on the needle on the e-meter, and then the auditor interprets that and goes this way and that way with it. That's the story on the e-meter, and most hilariously of all, Scientology considers the e-meter to be a religious artifact. And, G-Man, I want to add one thing. There was a whole case on this that was provided over by your friend, Judge Gazelle.
Oh.
And just background for your folks, Judge Gazelle was the one who took the Watergate case over from Judge Sirica. And he said, look, if the government had moved to limit Scientology when it was first springing up, I wouldn't have to be dealing with this tedious case. But it's here, and I'll do what I need to do with it.
I see. Is this the outfit that has the organ box? You know what I mean?
It isn't. That's some other screw.
That's Wilhelm Reich.
Oh, that's right. That's
right. That's right.
Okay. All right. So at least they're not involved in the organ box. Oh my.
No.
You say they caught Tom Cruise on the way up and John Travolta on the way down. Do you mean in terms of their career or some psychological?
No, in terms of career. Because he said if they're on the way up and you can get them before they're at the top, then you ride the star with them. If their career is sinking, they're going to be depressed. They're going to be looking for something they think that will help them get their career back on track. And that's the point you move in with Scientology.
Oh. How easy is it to get out? Franklin here. I mean, let's say you dig this Scientology.
Yeah, Franklin
thing.
wants to get out, and he doesn't want to get in any trouble.
Let's say you dig it and you move along with it. I remember I was in Beverly Hills the other day, and a gentleman stopped me on the street, and I was just looking at this large brownstone Celebrity Center for Scientology. Big mansion there in Beverly Hills. And he stopped me on the street, and he came up to me, and he really wanted to share the beauty of Scientology with me. I said, how long have you been in the church? He said, I've only been in for a few months, but I'm really learning how to be a better person. This was not a high operating level thetan, I suppose, or whatever they call him. But he was so enthusiastic about getting me involved. And I thought, poor soul, what happens if he wants to get out? It must be easy in the beginning. It must get harder and harder as you go along and are privy to the deep inner sanctum.
Yes. Let me just give a little background on the sociological layout of Scientology. There's a Lutheran pastor in Berlin named Thomas Gandau, who is the commissioner of cults for the Lutheran Church there. So he interacts a lot with Scientology and its victims. And he says Scientology does not know members in the usual organizational sense. It only has customers and salesmen. Okay? So what you have in Scientology is the hardcore Sea Org that run everything from the middle to the upper level. And then you have, at the local level, what are called publics, that is, public Scientologists. They simply come in and do auditing and take the courses and pay their money. And if they're doing great and forking over the money in donations, they don't get subject to much penalties and scrutiny. Okay, so how hard is it to get out? If you're a public, it's pretty easy. You just stop taking courses, and they'll hound you, and you just say, I don't have any money, okay? However, if you're inside the organization, either in Sea Org or a volunteer staff member, you get more and more indoctrinated. You're beginning to think that the world is run by the evil psychiatrists, that the media are merchants of chaos, that the government is a suppressive organization, okay? And it gets to be harder to come out. At one point, people get an illumination and say, this is all hogwash, and they leave. Here's the difficulty at that point. The more you go into it, the more you know, which is the more you have to reveal. And therefore, if you speak out critically against Scientology, you become a suppressive person under that fair game policy I mentioned before. And they will go after you. They'll send PIs on you. They'll spread false information about you and your neighborhood.
And they've already done their psychoanalytic investigations into your past, so they have lots of material with which to blackmail you, I suppose.
That's an important point.
They know your secrets.
Absolutely. Everything that goes on in auditing sessions is written down and put in a file. And so they've got the info on you. So that's one thing. The other thing is this. It's the disconnection policy. And it runs like this. If you are connected to someone, relative, friend, acquaintance, whatever, who speaks critically of Scientology, or someone who has been declared a suppressive person by Scientology, you can have no contact with them. You have to write them letters, say, that's it, no more contact. Any attempts to contact me, I'll turn you down. So it gets difficult to leave Scientology if you still have relatives inside of it. And there are many people in the Sea Org that are there because they're scared to death to leave, that their sister or their brother or their mother who are still in Scientology or in Sea Org are going to get fair game.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, my guest is Anonymous, and we're talking about the Church of Scientology. The lines are open for your comments and questions for Anonymous at 1-800-GG-Liddy. We do have a few calls that we want to get to. The main Anonymous forum, by the way, is whyweprotest.net.
This is the G. Gordon Liddy Show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, via email, just so you know, you only skimmed the surface of Scientology today. You can dedicate a whole week of program and not even fully understand just how deep the rabbit hole goes. I encourage you to keep it going to educate the public on Scientology. But be warned, you have the can of worms you opened. It will have Scientologists coming after you, which they no doubt already are planning, I guess, to put a snake in my mailbox. Still, I urge you to keep the story going. Anonymous is full of ex-Scientologists who have in-depth knowledge of the cult. It definitely is a wicked and scary place down the rabbit hole. Real quick, Morris, you're on the air.
Thank you, G-Man. Again, I echo the sentiments of that email. This is a subject that you could spend hours on. My question is, though, how does Scientology have a concept as far as God and a supreme being such as God?
Anonymous?
Okay, here's the quick thing on that. Every Scientologist who leaves says the only people who believe Scientology is a religion and has a belief in God are Scientologists. They don't talk about God. They don't mention God. They don't pray to God. They don't worship to God. Hubbard's system has a reference to God. It's called the eighth dynamic, and it is he just says it's infinity, basically, which means it's like nothing in the Scientology belief system.
Okay, what about I know, but what about the business of catching pneumonia if you're exposed to Xenu?
Oh, okay, that goes back to the Xenu story. Here's the deal on that. OT3 is...
I'm sorry, we've got a hard out. We've got to get you another time. Our guest has been anonymous. This is the G. Gordon Liddy Show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Live from Washington, you're listening to the voice of freedom, the voice of liberty, the voice of the nation.
This is Radio America.